Okay, today we're going to be talking about is this 3D printed battery operated space monster from the 1957 movie It Conquered the World. Is that Conquered or Conquerors? I don't have that written down. Anyway, you can find the movie on YouTube and watch it if you want. You can also find a Frank Zappa song on YouTube where he uses mostly the scenes of just the monster, so it'll be much quicker to see that. You can look that up as well. Basically, I found a file for a small token figure, like used in game boards and stuff. It was originally apparently designed by bmoviecreature.stl on My Mini Factory, and then it was remixed by KN16 on Printables, and he basically made it larger. So I took the same file, I can't remember which one I started with, and blew it up very big because I wanted to be able to get a motor and battery and lights in there and stuff. And I also chopped off the arms so that I could articulate the arms so that they would move. And I wanted it to waddle when it walked. So I've got concentric wheels on the bottom, got the switch in the front, the screw you release, and the 2AA battery holder drops out, which you then push back in. I'll show you all that in a second. And the arms are attached to the cams. Let's see if I can remember which way to move this. So we got some arm movement, and then of course you've got one to waddle movement. Now this is using the TT. The reason it's so fast is I'm using the most common TT motor, the 48-to-1. Obviously you could drop any of them in there. The 90-to-1 would be half that fast. The 120-to-1 would be a quarter that fast. The 2 whatever it is, would be an eighth. So you can put whichever one you want in there. I decided to put this one in because I wanted to advance really quickly and be more scary in that way. Used 2 red LEDs in the eyes. The eyes I printed separately in translucent, and this arm over here tends to hang up a little bit. You gotta kind of clean those slots out a lot. So basically on the bottom I've got a screw holding this little cap in, and then my screwdriver, and the battery pack would slide out like that. And put that back in there, and gotta make sure I put this back on the right way and find my screwdriver. Okay, that on there. Gravity's not my friend. There we go. Let's put that in. Then I've got 2 screws that basically just hold the bottom plate in. This is a really simple build. There's only a handful of parts, and there's not a big shopping list. Most of the robot projects have between 30 and 40 parts, and you got quite a little shopping list. Not in this case. You print the arms. The arms are split, so they can print without supports. You glue them together. So you've got a left and a right arm. Doesn't really matter which one you put where. You've got 1 body shell, which you do print with minimal 3 supports. Then you've got this bottom base plate piece here. Everything you see in black, that's 1 piece. The 2 concentric wheels, they're both identical. You just have one aiming down and one aiming up when you put the thing together. Put in any kind of TT motor you want. You can hold it in with a screw as long as the screw doesn't stick out so far that it's going to interfere with the rotation of the wheel. I'm using a 632 flathead screw there. And brought the battery wires up. I did extend the battery wires so I know that they'd be long enough to drop all the way down. Soldered one of them directly to the motor. The other one ran down to the switch to interrupt it, and then the switch back up to the motor. Of course, the 2 LEDs just tap across the motor. The LEDs are wired in parallel. I used a single, I think in this case I had a 430 ohm resistor, or maybe it was 220 ohm. It really doesn't matter. You just want them to glow. And I picked red because red, starts working at around 2 volts or just a little bit under. Some of the other colors require over 3 or right at 3, which isn't going to work well on a 3-volt supply. So when the arms come in, there are 2 little kicker levels there that you glue onto the end post of the arms. And when you assemble it, you'll want these all the way forward so that when you slip this motor part in, they're going to come and drop down on this ridge right there. So as the wheels come around the ridge, can kick those like so. Let's put the screws back in. Of course, you don't have to use screws. You could glue this together if you're sure you've done it right. Of course, I wasn't sure that I'd done it right, and I knew I'd be taking it apart for a video, so that's why I went ahead and put screws into the design. So here you can see how the wheels come around. Oh, I didn't mention that on these wheels I just took a rubber O-ring, they have a groove, and snapped one in around on that to give it some added traction, because I knew it was going to be moving quickly in my case. The slide switch is my standard little slide switch I like to use. Screws are on a 19mm mounting center. That means from here to here is 19mm. You can pick any slide switch you want. If it has a really long handle, that may come down and drag and cause an issue. But then again, it probably wouldn't. Probably would work fine. And if it did, it's just plastic. You can always cut it off. So when it came to the paint job, the actual prop, it's a black and white movie, prop was red and had white accents and some black parts on it too. So in this case I painted the whole thing burgundy, and then I lightly misted it with a camouflage green to give it kind of a dirtied effect, and then went back in with a paintbrush and some white paint to do the detailing. Let's move over to the computer. And let's turn off the light. There we go. So there's an image from the movie, so you can actually see how this kind of looked. And the arms stuck out in the claws, and they painted that, and how that looked. And I think I have sitting here, yep, here we go. Here would have been the original My Mini Factories one that started off as a little game piece, very small. Looks like it was resin printed. And according to this, it was designed by bmoviecreature.stl.